Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, will be deposed. And I suspect that that might be making Ryan Reynolds extremely nervous, and I'll tell you why. They want the judge to agree to an attorney's eyes only designation to protect, as they term it, highly confidential information that could destroy the careers of the third party people that are involved.
Ryan Reynolds fired from Marvel say it ain't so. Yup. The man behind the Merc with a mouth is reportedly out after a major behind the scenes controversy first. There's the $400 million lawsuit involving his wife Blake Lively and director Justin Baldoni, and then a joke in Deadpool 3 that apparently crossed the line. Marvel allegedly cut the joke, Reynolds fought back, and Disney, well, they weren't having it now. Rumors say Disney is phasing him out, reducing his creative control, toning down Deadpool's edgy humor, and even considering a multiverse Deadpool replacement. Some insiders claim Marvel could introduce a new Deadpool from another timeline, one that fits Disney's family.
It looks like Ryan Reynolds may have just suffered one of the biggest setbacks of his career, all stemming from the messy drama between his wife, Blake Lively, and director Justin Baldoni. Reports suggest that Disney, the parent company of Marvel Studios, has fired him from his iconic role as Deadpool. This fallout is impacting not only his professional reputation, but also straining his personal relationships, particularly with longtime friend and co-star Hugh Jackman. Fans are pointing fingers at Blake, blaming her for pulling Ryan into the chaos. Yet sources indicate that Ryan is directing much of his frustration toward Hugh, feeling betrayed by his lack of support. Allegedly, Ryan expected Hugh to defend him or help him reclaim his role, but Hugh chose to stay out of the drama to safeguard his own career. A smart PR move, perhaps, but one that reportedly left Ryan feeling abandoned and bitter. The most surprising twist? Ryan wasn't even involved in the original conflict, which began solely between Blake and Justin. Acting as a supportive husband, Ryan stepped in to defend Blake, inadvertently entangling himself in a scandal that may have triggered Disney's strict morality clause. A high-profile example of Disney's strict enforcement, reports indicate that she faced intense scrutiny and disciplinary action after allegedly engaging in behavior deemed controversial by the studio, demonstrating just how far-reaching the morality clause can be. For Reynolds, this means that even though his involvement in the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni feud was personal, Disney may have viewed it as damaging to their brand. The clause's vague language, covering public disrepute, scandal, or anything that could bring ridicule, gives the company broad discretion to act. With recent updates expanding the scope to include actions that may offend a community or significant group, Disney now wields near total control over the public conduct of its talent. Reynolds may have unwittingly crossed a line, putting one of Hollywood's most lucrative roles in jeopardy, and underscoring just how precarious fame can be under Disney's watchful eye. Allegedly snubbed for award recognition after becoming pregnant outside of marriage. While she wasn't officially fired, Disney reportedly pulled its support for her Oscar campaign, believing her personal choices didn't align with the company's carefully curated family-friendly image. So when the highly publicized fallout involving Ryan, Blake, and Justin unfolded, Disney may have felt it had reached its limit. Sources suggest that the prolonged chaos was beginning to tarnish the company's reputation. Legal issues may have also played a major role in Reynolds' dismissal. Justin Baldoni reportedly filed a court motion alleging that Ryan and Disney had used the Deadpool franchise to publicly mock and bully him. The dispute centers on a scene in Deadpool vs. Wolverine, where Reynolds portrays a variant character named Nissel or Nisel, sparking claims that the portrayal was intended as a personal jab rather than mere fiction. Varies depending on the report. In the scene, Nisel sarcastically asks, "Where in God's name is the intimacy coordinator?" A line seen by some as a pointed dig at Baldoni, who has publicly championed the use of intimacy coordinators on set and highlighted his feminist principles during interviews promoting It Ends With Us. The scene also features a line praising Lady Deadpool for bouncing back post-pregnancy, followed by a tongue-in-cheek feminism remark, which Baldoni and his legal team interpreted as a personal attack. According to court filings, Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, sent a letter to Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige and Disney CEO Bob Iger, accusing the company of engaging in targeted harassment and demanding that all documentation related to the matter be preserved. The letter reportedly hints at potential future legal claims, including contract interference and civil extortion. While the legal drama is still unfolding, it's easy to see why Disney might want to sever ties with Reynolds to avoid further controversy. Insiders suggest that Ryan's involvement in this tangled web, both personal and legal, professional, may have left the studio no choice but to act swiftly, intensifying the fallout from an already explosive situation. Was already on thin ice with Disney due to his steep compensation demands. Reports indicate he earned around $30 million for Deadpool vs. Wolverine, along with even higher earnings from profit shares and merchandising. His pay for Deadpool 2 allegedly doubled that of the first film, where he received roughly $20 million. While these figures may seem reasonable given the franchise's billion-dollar box office success, executives reportedly worried that the budget had become top-heavy. When you combine these financial tensions with ongoing legal issues and a potential morality clause violation, the picture becomes clearer. Disney had multiple reasons to part ways with Reynolds. Rumors of his firing first surfaced online when an insider tweeted, "Heard Ryan Reynolds got fired by Marvel for using Deadpool and Wolverine to mock and bully another director. Hope that's true." Initially, fans dismissed the claim, but the continued silence from both Marvel and Disney only fueled speculation. Despite Ryan's popularity and Deadpool's cultural impact, Disney has a track record of dropping talent if their actions threaten the company's carefully maintained clean image. Interestingly, amidst the chaos, Ryan reportedly hasn't directed his frustration at Blake, whose feud with Baldoni triggered the drama. Instead, sources say he is channeling his disappointment and anger toward Hugh Jackman. The two actors have long shared a playful, well-documented friendship, often teasing each other on social media. But now, Ryan is said to feel betrayed by Hugh's decision to step back rather than defend him, leaving tensions in their friendship at an all-time high. History tied to slavery, sparking accusations of insensitivity and poor judgment. What once might have been dismissed as a personal choice is now being reframed in light of the current controversy, adding more fuel to the fire. For Reynolds, this means that the backlash isn't just about the Deadpool-Baldoni dispute or the alleged morality clause violation, it's also prompting a reevaluation of past decisions, further complicating his public image. The sense of betrayal from Hugh Jackman only amplifies the pressure. Reynolds had likely counted on their friendship and the shared Deadpool-Wolverine brand as a protective buffer in times of scandal, but in Hollywood, survival often trumps loyalty. Hugh's decision to remain silent appears to be a calculated move to protect his own career, leaving Ryan to navigate the fallout alone. Between Disney's strict enforcement, the legal disputes, fan outrage, and public scrutiny of past choices, Reynolds now finds himself facing an unprecedented storm that threatens both his professional standing and personal reputation. History rooted in slavery. Though the couple later apologized, the choice continues to cast a shadow over their public image. In today's more socially conscious climate, past missteps are rarely forgotten, and the recent controversies have only brought them back into focus. In sum, Ryan Reynolds is facing a perfect storm of professional and personal fallout, from being potentially axed by Disney over alleged morality clause violations and character-based harassment, to feeling betrayed by his closest friend and contending with renewed scrutiny of past controversies. It's clear he is in crisis mode. Whether he can recover remains uncertain, but for now, he is learning just how unforgiving Hollywood can be when reputations are on the line. This saga serves as a stark reminder that in the entertainment industry, loyalty is fleeting, and scandal never truly sleeps.
Blake and Ryan did indeed get married at a plantation in South Carolina, which features 9 slave cabins and an area called Slave Street. It was owned by the Boone family, who enslaved around 100 people, forced them to live in these cabins, and made them work on the plantation. It was then taken over by the Horlbeck family, who at the time purchased both the plantation and the enslaved people. The enslaved people were then forced to work for the Horlbeck's brick company, and it's recorded that each enslaved person was forced to make 1 brick every 3 minutes for 365 days a year. Boone Hall has 9 slave cabins in total, which have been preserved so that people can come along and be educated about the horrors that Black Americans faced.
Plantations like the Boone Hall plantation are a very dark reminder of slavery and the horrors that are tied to that history. But still, Blake and Ryan thought it was cute to get married there. Yeah, it explains why fans are now giving them the side eye.
All of this brouhaha around Blake Lively right now made me want to revisit the plantation wedding controversy, because I don't think it's been explained well in the media. So Blake and Ryan got married at the Boone Hall plantation in South Carolina in the United States. This plantation appeared in the film The Notebook as the main character Allie's family's summer home. Now, plantations in the USA and other former British colonies in the Americas have a dark history. To make a long story short, in the early 17th century, English settlers were offered large plots of land as a reward for exploring these uncharted territories, which were the Americas. These plots of land were cultivated to produce agriculture and eventually became plantations. To maintain the plantations, settlers bought people from West Africa and trafficked them to the Americas, where they were enslaved and used as free manpower to enrich the settlers. After the Civil War in America, the plantation system essentially collapsed, partially because of the end of all that free labor. Now, in the modern era, some of the plantation homes that remain were transformed into historic sites for people to visit and learn about. This one, which was Thomas Jefferson's home. Dr. Etta Fields Black, professor of history at Carnegie Mellon University, states that a plantation must interpret the entire history of all of the people who lived on the property. In other words, don't just show this without any discussion of this. Talk about the full history. However, she also said that this shouldn't deter anybody from appreciating the antebellum architecture of plantation homes or the gardens surrounding them, because it may provide a chance to spotlight the beautiful work of the enslaved crafters that has been largely erased from architectural history. So yes, go ahead, look and learn about plantations. But should you get married at one, some want the antebellum aesthetic without having to think about what might have gone.
Plantations like Boone Hall carry a dark legacy of slavery and its deep-rooted horrors. Yet Blake and Ryan chose it as the location for their wedding, a decision many now view as tone-deaf. Given today's heightened social awareness, it's no surprise that fans are revisiting that choice and casting serious side-eye at the couple.
About this avalanche of information that's coming out about Harvey Weinstein, because the question is, I mean, you're in the industry. How do you think Hollywood moves on from this point? How do you think it can seize this moment and turn it into something positive?
I think it's important that we acknowledge that this isn't just Hollywood. This is so much more global, and it's not just, oh, guess what? This is what's happening to women suddenly. This has been happening since the beginning of time, but now people are finally talking about it. And I think that that's what's important, is that where I never had experiences like this with Harvey myself. I only had positive ones with him, but that goes to show where, you don't always see what's going on behind closed doors. So I think that when people come forward, that your bosses, you have to acknowledge it. There have been moments where I've come forward, where other people have come forward with things that just feel little and you're not sure. But when your bosses tell you that this is not a priority to them, then you think, okay, well then this must not be that big of a deal. Maybe what I'm complaining about isn't really that big of a deal. And it is.
And you're right, that's every single.
To be fair, Ryan Reynolds has acknowledged and apologized for the poorly thought-out decision to marry at Boone Hall Plantation. A few years ago, he publicly expressed regret, admitting that what initially seemed like a charming venue turned out to be a painful symbol of America's dark history. In his own words, Ryan said, "It's impossible to reconcile. What we saw at the time was a wedding venue on Pinterest. What we saw after was a place built upon devastating tragedy." He also revealed that he and Blake later held another wedding at home to make amends for the original choice. Ryan reflected on the experience, noting that shame works in strange ways. A major mistake like that can either shut you down or push you to take action. While it doesn't mean you won't make errors again, challenging lifelong social conditioning is an ongoing process. While Ryan owned up to the misstep, Blake Lively hasn't entirely escaped scrutiny either. Fans have long highlighted some of her controversial associations in Hollywood, most notably her past ties to Harvey Weinstein. Before his downfall, Blake was frequently linked to him, generating controversy as far back as 2009. Celebrity blogger Lainey Gossip wrote at the time, "Every couple of years or so, Harvey likes to pick a young actress, turn her into a star, or at least try to. It happened with my Gwyneth, the Alba. She had her chance. And Harvey, too." Now, it seems Blake Lively had caught Harvey Weinstein's eye, a deal with the devil, so to speak. Given the gravity of Weinstein's later convictions, many expected Blake to speak out in support of his victims. Instead, she distanced herself from the scandal, stating only that she personally had no such experience with him, leaving many disappointed by her perceived lack of solidarity. But the controversies don't stop there. Blake also raised eyebrows when she made the highly controversial decision to work with Woody Allen. In 2016, she starred in Café Society, one of Allen's final films before Hollywood largely distanced itself from him due to long-standing and deeply troubling allegations of abuse. The backlash wasn't solely about her role, it was about the choice itself, highlighting ongoing debates over accountability and morality in Hollywood. The decision was all the more controversial given how public the allegations had been for years by that point. Let's not pretend Blake was unaware of the accusations. By 2016, stories about Allen's alleged mistreatment of his stepdaughters, particularly Dylan Sarro, had been widely covered in the media. Despite this, Blake chose to take the role, and rather than acknowledging the controversy or showing caution, she doubled down on her support for Allen. In interviews, she claimed that working with Woody was a positive experience and described him as empowering to women. That statement alone shocked many, considering the very public concerns regarding how Allen had allegedly treated women, especially those closest to him. The backlash intensified when Ronan Farrow, Allen's son and a journalist, published his now famous piece in The Hollywood Reporter titled "My Father, Woody Allen, and the Danger of Unasked Questions." In the essay, Ronan criticized Hollywood for continuing to overlook serious allegations against his father, highlighting the culture of silence that allowed such behavior to persist. Blake's public praise of Allen, combined with her prior ties to Weinstein, painted her in a controversial light, with critics questioning her judgment and awareness of Hollywood's moral landscape. While she continued to thrive professionally, these choices fueled ongoing debate over accountability, ethics, and the responsibilities of celebrities when it comes to supporting victims and speaking out against abuse. Her involvement in these controversies became a recurring talking point, resurfacing whenever her public image came under scrutiny. Even as movements like #MeToo were gaining momentum, Ronan Farrow's words were a direct challenge to stars like Blake, who continued to work with Woody despite the ongoing controversy. Naturally, people expected a response from Blake, but when asked about Ronan's article, she deflected, claiming she hadn't read it and didn't want to comment on something she hadn't seen firsthand. Her response came across more as a carefully crafted PR move than genuine reflection. She stated, "I haven't been in it, so I don't want to speak on something I haven't read. I think that's dangerous." She went on to vaguely criticize the media at film festivals without addressing the actual concerns raised in the article. In another interview, she doubled down, saying, "It's amazing what Woody has written for women. It's very dangerous to factor in things you don't know anything about. I can only know my experience, and my experience with Woody is he's empowering to women." For many, this defense completely missed the point. The issue wasn't her personal comfort on set. It was about publicly supporting an alleged abuser at a moment when Hollywood needed accountability more than ever. The current backlash against Blake and Ryan isn't solely about the Justin Baldoni drama or Disney's strict morality clause. Fans have started digging into their past actions, and what they're uncovering isn't flattering. Blake's history of working with controversial figures and her tone-deaf defenses of them have not aged well. As for Hugh Jackman, it's perhaps unsurprising that he chose to quietly step back. Hollywood is notoriously cutthroat, and public image is everything. Being caught up in a scandal, even one unrelated to you, can be career suicide. While some argue Hugh should have supported his longtime friend, others see his silence as a smart move to protect himself.
So, what do you think? Was Hugh right to stay out of the drama, or should he have stood by Ryan? And regarding Disney, did they go too far in firing Reynolds, or were they simply acting to safeguard their brand? The debate is far from over, and the fallout continues to spark conversation across Hollywood and among fans worldwide.